Good afternoon. Welcome to Cohn and Krueger. I'm Grant Cohn. That's Larry Krueger, who's a freaking legend, by the way. I'm going to give him his flowers in a little bit, but there's breaking news we got to get into right now.
Let's
So
do it.
Kyle Shanahan did his conference call this morning because it's a short week and they have to cram in 7 days into 4. I understand. So graciously, their PR director, Corey Rush, just sent out a mass text giving the information on the injury so we don't have to hear it from some national reporter. Here's the information, starting with Deebo Samuel. He has an MCL sprain and an ankle sprain and is expected to return at some point in the regular season. The first part sounds bad. The second part sounds good. How do you interpret this?
Well, the fact that he can make a comeback, that right there makes it great news.
Right.
Because I thought there was a very good chance we were seeing the end of the season for him. But yeah, I do, the fact that it's a compound injury now, you've got an MCL sprain, which is a knee sprain, then you got a high ankle sprain. So you got a lot of trauma to the leg.
Yeah.
I don't know. Can guys come back when they got that combo, leg injury? I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the precedents are for it, but he's a tough guy. And the fact that he's going to be there in the playoffs, if you're a Niner fan, you're feeling good.
Yeah, it's strange. I mean, they're saying it's an MCL sprain. So Elijah Mitchell has an MCL sprain. He had one earlier this year. It's usually a 6 to 8 week injury. Now,
Right. Which so is the ankle.
right. So maybe they're saying, since it's coming up on the postseason, Deebo Samuel is willing to play less than 100%. That's the way I sort of interpret it. All of a sudden, you can heal from all of this in 3 weeks because there's 4 games left.
I mean, the one thing that we know, but we already knew, I mean, you know it and I know it, the fans know it, Deebo's a warrior. Deebo's
Right.
tough.
Of course.
Deebo might.
He's going to play.
He's going to play in the playoffs. Deebo's going to be there in the playoffs.
Yeah, but my question is, what's he going to be? Is he ever going to be back to 100% this year? Is he not really going to be able to cut off that left foot? Like, what's a reasonable expectation for Deebo Samuel 3 or 4 weeks out of this?
He might have to be used more as a decoy, but he definitely,
So he's coming back.
He's coming back in the playoffs, but
compromised.
He hasn't had a great year, but at moments he's had incredible highlights in the middle of that kind of overall. His overall play has been a little bit down, but he's had some incredible moments. So what can we expect to see from him in the playoffs? I thought he was going to have some huge moments in the playoffs. Now it's kind of a wait and see.
So I'm not saying this like kills the Niners' Super Bowl chances because it doesn't. All of a sudden they have a quarterback, as Nick Bosa said, but this doesn't help. And if you're thinking like, oh, it's okay, he'll be back and he'll be 100% and he'll tear it up in the playoffs. Well, he wasn't tearing it up when he was before this injury, and I don't really know what to expect. He'll play probably, but he'll be compromised. And if they do win the Super Bowl, it's going to be because of McCaffrey and Ayuk and probably Kittle and other guys. Although Kittle in his 28 yards, he could probably per game, he could probably step that up. But he's just catching strays for no reason. Sorry, George. Love your work. More news. Brock Purdy has an oblique/rib injury and is day to day. How do you interpret this?
Well, if it's a tear, it's a terrible injury. If it's just a pull, maybe they can deal, somehow deal with it and get it rehabbed. But
if it's day to day.
Yeah, and then the question is, how much does a quarterback use his oblique to play the game? And is it a pain tolerance thing? Like for baseball, it's a nightmare injury, right? Because you're sitting there
hard to throw,
and you've got your every swing. You've got the whole torque of your torso.
That's right.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure for a quarterback. I mean, that might be the question for Shanahan is, how does an oblique injury impact a quarterback? Where does he feel it? Does he feel it on his drop, at the top of his drop? When did he hurt it when he dove for the first down on the deke?
Yes.
He did.
Yes.
So, so he extended. So it really had maybe nothing
probably
to
landed
do.
On it.
Yeah.
So it seems like something you could probably numb before the game and play through. I mean, he played through it already, didn't he? I don't know.
I'll say this. I've had a pulled oblique and it is painful and it's kind of nagging too. So it's kind of like a hammy. You don't want it to be, something that lingers, but I don't know how much it impacts his motion and his ability to throw the ball down the field or with velocity. I don't know.
Look, as someone who played JV baseball at Bishop O'Dowd High School, all I can say is I've injured my oblique before, and it's really hard to throw a ball. No matter which oblique it is. It's hard to swing. It's hard to twist. It's hard to throw. It's hard to do all of that. So he did it already. Maybe he can do it again. But the fact that it's a Thursday game, I think, is kind of rough timing for the 49ers. Best guess, you think he plays? This Thursday?
I think he plays, and it's a run-heavy scheme, and the 49ers win. That would be my guess. And on the one thing on the Deebo front that I think is going to be, we got a glimpse of this week for the very first time, or not the first time, but the first time in a long time, Danny Gray. Danny Gray was out there. And you're talking about, the receivers and impacting winning. Danny Gray, if they could introduce him and get him in some kind of rhythm, I'm not saying feeding him a lot of balls, but I'm just saying if they could introduce him to their offense and make him a guy who produces, he could have a profound impact on Kyle, his ability to call plays underneath. He just creates all this space. If they can establish him as a deep threat in the latter part of the year, that could really bode well for their chances.
Why do you think he was on the field yesterday after all this time? Why?
Because I think they just know that he has a reason that he's on the roster. His reason is he takes the top off of defense and makes teams play them deep. And teams, that's something Shanahan. Offensive football is about creating space. In the run game, you need space. In the pass game, you need space.
You're so
Danny
close,
Gray
Larry.
creates that space.
You're so close. Yes, he creates that space. And there's a quarterback who's going to take advantage of it now, unlike the last one. I'm saying Brock Purdy now puts Danny Gray back in play the way that Trey
He does throw the deep ball.
Jimmy Garoppolo took him out of play. So anyway, I'm excited about
Jimmy
that.
didn't try a lot of deep balls. I think Brock will look down the field.
Absolutely. All right, last injury. Kevin Givens, defensive tackle, MCL sprain, out for a few weeks. This is not intriguing. It's significant because Hassan Ridgeway's out with a strained pec. Javon Kinlaw's still out. Eric Armstead just came back. This is a position where the Niners are thin.
What's the Hyder update?
Didn't get one from the PR.
So maybe
director.
he's okay.
Yeah, but they're running out of defensive tackles.
They worked out Marlon Davidson, I think, the other day.
They're at that level. So do you think this increases the likelihood that they bring back Kinlaw, or is Kinlaw just sort of independent in his own? He'll come back if he's ready. I mean, how does this impact the 49ers season and decision-making?
Well, I mean, it makes the need for Kinlaw to come back greater. Yeah. But the question is, Kinlaw, there's been, his ratio of games in the NFL to games played is not good. So I don't know how much you want to invest in that. And I don't even know if that's, I mean, he is a good player who commands a double team, has to be accounted for, can absorb blockers and just keep guy. He could be kind of like Tony Siragusa was for Ray Lewis for the Niner backers if he could be in there. So he has value. I'm not saying he doesn't have value. There's a lot of value, but he also has chronic knee injuries. And I don't know if it's how viable it is. And I I've been down there, but I haven't heard one word about his timetable.
That's the
or
thing.
The time frame for him.
I don't know.
It
seemed like when he first went down, he would be on the field before games, and he was close. And then it just seemed like the Niners just shut him down for 2 months. So and they haven't really explained their thought process behind it. But Kyle's just talked today and said they hope to open his practice window next week. That doesn't mean they'll activate him off IR. If they feel like he's only going to play a few games and have to sit down again, maybe you want to bring back Trey Lance instead. I'm just saying, it's like the Niners have a issue keeping their quarterbacks healthy. They're thin at both spots, quarterback and D tackle. It's a conundrum.
Oh no, and not only that, Grant. It's a huge question, right? Mm-hmm. But I think it's also a huge question on both sides because the 49ers right now they're really good defensively in a lot of ways. But if you get to 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, and you just want to run it hard up the A gap, they don't really have that guy who says, nope, we're putting up a wall. They don't have that guy. They don't have that massive 2-gap presence, especially with Ridgeway out. Ridgeway is a big man, so they don't really have that player. Kinlaw is that player. So, it'd be very enticing to try to bring him back because he does help you on 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1 in the middle of the field.
Real quick, Michael says, where do you think the Niners would be right now if they hadn't picked up McCaffrey? Monumental pickup. I didn't like the move at the time, but I didn't realize that the Niners were really not going to get very much from Deebo Samuel this year. And in retrospect, had I known, I mean, really maybe they knew. And now they have, like, if they didn't have McCaffrey and this news with Deebo had happened, their offense would be in a tough spot. I mean, they still have Ayuk and Jordan Mason and Kittle, but this McCaffrey move sort of cushions the blow of the Deebo injury big time. So
they got a lot of talent on the team, but I'll say this. Go back and really look at it and all the factors. If they don't make that trade for McCaffrey, their season goes down the toilet. Why? Because most likely if he doesn't come to the Niners, it wasn't like Carolina would say, we're just going to keep him. No, they were going to move him, and he was going to go to the Rams. And then the Niners would have had to play against McCaffrey instead of play with McCaffrey. McCaffrey almost single-handedly won that Ram game. The Niners were 3-5. They would have dropped to 3-6, and they were going to get off the canvas with all the negativity swirling that your team that just beat you, that also beat you by getting McCaffrey, has made this trade and you haven't. They got a lot of talent on the roster, but I really think Lynch deserves Executive of the Year if the Niners go on and do anything in the postseason for that move and for the timing of that move.
Frankly, like, if Lynch wins Executive of the Year, it's going to be because of Brock Purdy, because this is the greatest, potentially the greatest story of all time. He just might be the first rookie to win a Super Bowl. It's looking like he has a realistic shot to do it. And what's great about this is it's such a great story that everyone around, like, the nation, the football world, is going to try to get a piece of it. And you're going to hear a bunch of frauds over the next couple of weeks be like, I was there. I saw it. I could tell that Brock Purdy was great. I didn't say anything. I didn't tweet anything, but I knew. And I want to go back and tell you what I saw. I was there. A lot of people were there. One person saw this. One person had the courage and conviction to basically shout it to anyone that was listening, no matter how many eye rolls he got. It was Larry Krueger. And I want to make sure everyone knows that, because this is a very important moment for a lot of sports journalists, and the person that should be getting the credit is freaking Larry. So let's just take a minute to acknowledge what Larry did. Not congratulations. I'm just very impressed.
I've been wrong before. I've been wrong before. No, but I like the player.
Everyone has been wrong before.
I did. I'll say this, though. I didn't like it on draft day. Like, when I saw it on draft day and I saw it across the scroll, I was like, oh, my God, really? Because I watched Iowa State, and I remember him kind of being more of a little bit of a smaller guy, soft tosser. I didn't think he had an NFL arm. I didn't think he had NFL stature.
I thought they were drafting for the practice squad in round 7. I'm like, that is too cute. But
they knew more.
They were drafting their franchise quarterback.
Just kidding. What I'm looking for, I am on a mission this week to go find the guy who first got on John Lynch's radar, the road scout, who said, no, John, this isn't good. This guy's great. Somebody in their room banged the table for Brock Purdy, and I am going to find out who banged the table for Brock Purdy, and I'm giving them their flowers, because that's the guy that really deserves. I just recognized that it was a good pick in the aftermath. But I'll tell you what I saw is that accurate, tough, smart, humble, short area fast, not quick, not long speed, but short area fast, like Mahomes. I know you're gonna make you laugh on that one.
No, that's fine. Like Tua.
Yeah, I mean, like he Tua can sprint for 5 steps, and it's pretty explosive.
And he has nice touch on his deep throw.
And then the other thing is, the ball coming out on time is the number one thing of being a quarterback. And there's all different ways to do it. And I just thought when I saw this guy in camp, he was going to need everything to just happen perfect for him for the ball to come out on time. And then I started watching him in minicamp, and I realized the ball comes out on time all the time with Brock Purdy. So, and then when I got a chance to meet him this summer, when they opened up the locker room, and I saw, man, this guy is humble. He's smart. He's tough. He's driven. He comes from a family of athletes. He understands exactly who he is and where he is, and how fortunate he is to be where he's at. I'll say this: you're down there every week. I am too. This week, if he couldn't play, or last week, I should say, if he couldn't play, we would have the feeling in that room would have been way, way different than what it actually was. The feeling in the room, if he couldn't play, is, man, the season's over. They wouldn't say it necessarily, but there'd be guys whispering about, man, the injury bug just got us down this year. It's just another year where the injury bug they would be looking beyond Sunday, even if they weren't. But instead, there was like this bounce in the room. There's this confidence with the Niners. Why? Because every guy in that room knows that they got just as good a chance of winning the Super Bowl today as they did when they had Jimmy in there, if not better. And they're not, and they know they're kind of in an underdog role now too. So I don't know what you got out of it, but that's what I got out of it.
You're on a roll right now. I got a question for you.
You're on a real deal.
I got a question for you. What is this man's ceiling? Because we see he's pro-ready. He's experienced. He's got a really good team around him. It's a great marriage. Because clearly the Niners didn't want a project. This locker room runs the team. They get what they want. They don't want a project. They want someone that's ready to go because they're a win-now team. They got one now in Brock Purdy. What's his ceiling, though? Is this a guy who could be a franchise quarterback? What do you think?
That is the ultimate question. And even though I like him, and even though I've talked, I may have been on him before others, I just was saying he's a viable NFL quarterback.
Sure.
Now, is he a championship caliber quarterback? I'll say this. The ball that he threw to Ayuk hung. And if you throw too many balls that hang in the NFL, there's a lot of picks coming. But as far as what is really quarterback about, it's about getting to the line of scrimmage, getting the team into and out of the right plays, and having the ball come out on time, and then having the other 10 guys in the huddle believe in you. And so there's leadership, there's toughness, you have to be really, really smart. I think he's really, really smart. He's never going to have like the Joe Flacco, Terry Bradshaw, top of the scale arm. Nope. Mahomes. He doesn't have that kind of gun, but he's got.
In fact, it's on the lower end. It's on the lower. If you would say if there is an average in the NFL, you would say that the velocity would be below average. Although it doesn't seem to be a problem yet.
Yeah. No, but what he has is the ability to see the field, throw with anticipation, and throw with accuracy.
Yep.
And he's got awesome weapons and an incredible play caller. And all they got to do, week 13 against Miami, I think the stat I saw, Grant, was the ball came out in 2.67 seconds. And it was like among the lowest in the entire league in week 13. If they can focus on that, dial up that clock, because he can't take the running 285-pound, Rashawn Gary bearing into him and get up. This guy's, you got to respect the fact that he's a little bit smaller, but he's tough and he's smart. Yeah, I think they can win with him. I think he's a starting NFL quarterback who can win a Super Bowl.
All right, let me answer my question, since you're not going to give me a straight answer on his ceiling. I like him. I think his ceiling is Tua, who is a freaking MVP candidate right now. Now, I don't know if Tua's ever going to win a Super Bowl, and maybe he would if he were on the 49ers, but I've seen Tua. Tua's good. Now, the Niners made him look bad, but a pass rush can do that when you're going up against, Mahomes looked bad in the Super Bowl when he didn't have his offensive tackle. So give Tua a break. And I know he struggled this week too, but still, what Tua has is he's pretty quick. He can improvise. He's very decisive, very accurate, aggressive down the field, touch. He's the right-handed Tua. And to me, that's a compliment. You can see what Tua's accomplishing this year. Just saying.
I like
that was a first round
more
pick.
than Tua. I like him more than Tua.
Okay.
I would say
because Tua almost looks like a little. So someone called him a front runner. He seems like he folds if there's a little bit of pressure. This guy's a little salty. Brock.
I think. Well, and I guess I'd be a little worried about Tua durability wise because he's had so many injuries. But no, to me, I had an old scouting buddy, and I won't say his name. But I said, give me a comp on him. And I said, I threw out Kirk Cousins and some other name. I like what he's very calm. He reminds me a little bit of Rodgers and this and that. He said, mini Joe Burrow.
Mini Joe Burrow.
Mini Joe Burrow.
Okay.
Now, the question is, do you like Joe Burrow more than you like Tua? Some people do, some people don't. But there's some, and I said, why? Why mini Joe Burrow? He goes, there's a magic. There's a little magic to Joe Burrow. And he's like,
Okay,
you know what? I think
fair enough.
I think Purdy's got a little bit of.
It's in terms of
he
his
sees
temperament.
the field.
In terms of his temperament and his
Well,
style.
no,
Okay.
as in terms of he sees things ahead of time. He sees how they're going to develop. He throws with great accuracy, but anticipation. But he does have to step into it and use all of his lower body. But he sees it ahead of time, so his footwork in the short game's impeccable, and then his ability to step into his throws with consistency. Like Nick Mullins was not bad when he stepped into his throws, but I would say 40% of his throws he's throwing off his back foot and backwards, and Purdy doesn't. He's throws with a solid base, and his mechanics are way better than Mullins.
Well, if he's a mini Joe Burrow, he should
They got a shot
to win a Super Bowl, right? Yeah, absolutely. Matthew Sanders says there was a stretch of time where offense was better without Deebo. Offensive snaps are precious in playoffs. It's a disservice to the team he plays when hurt.
No, that's totally that's not right. It's a disservice to the team when he plays hurt. Every guy on both sides of the ball got their carcass off the bench and sprinted to midfield to dap him up. That's what he means to them. The fact that he plays hurt is not a disservice to the team. That's why the team loves Deebo. That's why he's beloved.
Lorenzo says 3 words: Larry F. and Krueger, the GOAT on 13. Jonathan says Larry is the soothsayer. Give that man these $2. Next time I see him, I'm going to give him these $2. Jason says we all know this was an Adam Peters pick. I don't know it was an Adam Peters pick. It was an organizational. I'd love to know. I want
to know who I want to know who pounded the table. Somebody did, and I got to get that from
a scout. An area. It started lower down the food chain.
Right.
Bottom line, Purdy playing on Thursday. Your gut. We think yes.
I say yes.
The gut is yes. Eric says if the Niners are even better with Purdy than they were with Jimmy, who are the Niners' biggest threat in the NFC and from the AFC to Super Bowl? I mean, Philly, Buffalo, Kansas City. Philly, Buffalo, Kansas City, right? It's been that way.
And I guess I would have to throw Dallas in the way they've looked the last couple games.
Yeah, they didn't look
except
great.
Until this week, of course. They look terrible.
Brady signed for Greenlaw to tell Niners, see you next year. I swear it felt like a lot of fraternizing between people that were thinking we might be teammates next year. I don't know. I mean, Brock Purdy's a good story, but you got to have options. Options are nice. Daniel says, to be fair, he threw that Ayuk pass off his back foot with a dude hit him in the mouth. I agree. I thought that was a freaking amazing throw. There's no way Jimmy would do that. Jimmy would take the sack.
But it did hang. It did hang.
Yeah, it did.
That's how open he was, though.
True. Definitely, yeah, it was wide open. Definitely not a wow arm, but it seems good enough. Yeah, let's see what happens when there's a book on him. But for now, it seems like an upgrade over James. Trey says, I knew this kid was good during his preseason games. There was a reason why he beat out the quarterback we picked before him, his smartness and ball placement. Gamer. Brock has amazing poise in the pocket. He does. He really does. Jimmy didn't. And I don't think that Trey does yet. That's something you get from playing a lot of football, and it's probably an intrinsic trait as well. Larry, how should the Niners handle their quarterback position this offseason? I know we're getting way ahead of ourselves, but I like to do that. So what do you think?
What's Jimmy's appetite? Does he want to be here? Does he not want to be here? Do they want him here? Do they not want him here? Does Brady want to be here? Is Brady going to, I guess you're asking me my ideal situation. I guess it would be Brady, Purdy, let Jimmy walk, trade Trey.
You would
recoup some of those draft assets and build up.
You would trade Trey now.
I would consider trading Trey because I think Purdy gives you the cheap quarterback, so you can still have all the, the Bosa extensions and the Deebo extensions, and Brady maybe even gives you a bargain on the final year. How do you look away from Tom Brady and then look how many teams need a quarterback? And I think Trey Lance, it would definitely fetch at least a first-round draft choice.
I don't know about that. After
really?
After the last 2 years? I mean, he hasn't played. He's coming off an injury. Maybe he would. Maybe a late first?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of people who've said a lot of bad things about him, but I think if you just look at his film and what he is as a person, what he is as a player, what he is as a prospect, I mean, if you don't want him, that's fine with me, but guys get better. And if you don't believe it, look at Green Bay's backup. He's gotten better. Guys do get better.
I mean, but isn't that all the more reason for the Niners to hold on to Trey Lance? I mean,
their
quarterbacks get hurt. You don't really know what you have from
I guess
Brock Purdy. Maybe hedge your bets.
Yeah, I mean, you could go the reasonable thing would go Purdy and Lance and let Jimmy walk, and then just let those guys kind of compete. In a lot of ways, I think it would be an incredible combo, Purdy and Lance. Why? Because Purdy does understand the nuances of the position, and that means I bet you a dollar to a dime he's great in a meeting, and he contributes in the meeting, and that helps elevate every other guy.
He's like a 30-year-old man.
Yeah, he's like, I mean, I think it was Baldinger said this week, the guy's plays like a veteran. I mean,
he's like he's 35. Absolutely. I bet Trey could learn from him.
He'd be great.
The experience is
Trey.
legit.
Yeah, if Trey picks up the nuances that Purdy has mastered because of 46 starts at Iowa State, Trey, with his skill set, could be one of the greatest quarterbacks that ever played.
Yeah, well, it's not hyperbole coming from the man who called Brock Purdy. So it's interesting. If they bring in Tom Brady, I don't know if they keep Trey Lance as a third-string quarterback. I don't know.
I don't think
that'd be rough. But and it's a conundrum, right? Like Brady isn't looking great this year, but they talked themselves out of Brady for the same reason 3 years ago, and this week Kyle literally said, "What was anyone thinking?" So there's a lot of pressure to not make the same mistake twice, and frankly, I think Brady would look pretty good on the Niners if you put him on.
I mean, a lot of people are going to point to yesterday and go, he didn't look so great yesterday, but I thought he actually looked really good. I mean, did they sack him at all?
No.
They got no sacks against the GOAT, who's 40 when he's 45. And why is that? It wasn't they weren't getting pressure. They got pressure instantly. He just got rid of it faster.
Yeah. I mean, the Niners haven't figured out quite how to protect their quarterbacks yet, or their quarterbacks haven't figured out how to protect themselves, but I watched a 45-year-old man do a very good job of that yesterday on a football field. It's quite impressive if you just look at it through that lens.
No doubt. I mean, he knows how to get it out of there.
Double B Studio says, "What's up, Grant and Larry? Niners beat Seattle if Purdy plays."
Well, yeah. I mean, that's that. There's that, and also, if they just focus on just running it down their throat. I mean, I'd like to see them turn that into the Jordan Mason Bowl.
Thank you. Could you get him involved like before the third quarter? What is that? I'm saying.
Well, their game. It's interesting. No, the last 3 games or 4 games, the game plan offensively has been exactly the same. Throw it a lot early, early McCaffrey, Mason to finish. Yep. But Mason's young and healthy and strong and fresh. And I talked to him last week. He's ready to roll. And I'd like to see him get some first half carries and see if he can go for 100.
Agree. MPG says they need to give Trey a year of snaps. If they won't wait, let him go. He has talent and shouldn't be ruined by this franchise. Yeah, it is. It's rough. How many years can you put a guy on a bench when he needs reps? He didn't play in college. At a certain point, it feels like you're doing a disservice to a kid, but you're so invested. It's a conundrum. Jonathan says Larry the Gray or Larry Dumbledore.
Not sure what that means.
Matthew says problem with the vets is that it isn't usually a slow decline. It's usually a fall off a cliff. I don't mind if we're the team Brady goes to pasture on. Okay. Well, I don't think he's fallen off a cliff yet, but I want to ask about, let's come back to the Niners. So you got Brock Purdy, Jordan Mason. There's frequently some guy who was a day 3 pick or an undrafted free agent hanging around on the bench or on the practice squad who was a freaking baller and probably should have been playing a lot earlier. Who do you think is the next Brock Purdy / Jordan Mason that's just lurking, hanging out, biding his time, and going to be a star on this team?
Grant, if I told you, you'd probably start laughing. But I'm going to give you a couple.
Okay.
I think the kid
say Marcelino McCrary Ball.
Well, I love him.
The Niners can develop linebackers unlike any other team.
Marcelino McCrary Ball is a phenomenal linebacker.
And Johnny Holland is the best linebacker coach in the league. He's great. Super great. Look what he's done with every single linebacker he's had.
And the Niner linebackers right now are just, words can't even describe it. I mean, those guys are just, every one of those guys is just a bad A. I mean,
that's right.
But the Niners have a few guys that I think are undrafted that are going to be heard from before it's all said and done. I love Marcelino McCrary Ball. I think he's really, really good football player. I like Quantrez Knight as far as a guy who I think can play in the NFL.
He came up to me in the locker room like a month ago, and he was like, "Hey, man, I just want you to know, I'm coming.
He is coming. He's a hell of a football player too.
Yeah, I love that.
He's great. But there are others. I mean, nobody knows Tay Martin at all. He hasn't played at all. And Tay Martin. I like Poe as well, but Poe's a great kid and he has got a tremendous personality. When he gets in there, I'd like to see Poe get some run at center. I think Poe is definitely an NFL offensive lineman who's going to be successful.
He's
I think
Jordan Mason of that offensive line room. Oh, you like Zakelj?
I like Zakelj. Zakel's tough as it gets, man. He's a really tough guy. So yeah, I mean, and I'll tell you the guy that we haven't even mentioned who is the real guy to remember for the future. Kalia Davis.
Oh, red shirt.
Kalia Davis.
Okay.
On the NFI list. This guy, people compare him to DJ Jones because he's 6'1", 320. This guy is an awesome interior pass rusher at 6'1", 320. Like really, really, really fast, really, really, really quick and tenacious and productive. So wait until they get this defense a year from now, has Kalia Davis inside in a rotation. But he's 315 pounds, built really, squatty and just fast and athletic. And he knows how to play. So with a great motor. So wait until he gets rolling. He's going to be a star.
Good call. Ethan M says Purdy and Lance will push each other. They're competitive.
Yeah. The only question I would ask Grant is the same question that you brought up, which is, are the Niners ever going to give Trey the kind of ramp up period that he clearly has to have?
And that's the tough thing. Like, you drafted him knowing he's a project who didn't play in college beyond 1 year. And so to compare him against guys like Jimmy, who's 30, or Brock Purdy, who has experience, he's never going to give you the best chance to win against someone who's ready now. But the whole idea with Trey is to take one step back, to take 3 or 5 steps forward. And if you're not committed to that process, then why did you draft him? Why did you do this? There was no secret about Trey Lance. Everyone knew 1 year starting experience. It's a project for someone who's a great coach on a great team. And Kyle's like, I will take that project. I am the man for this job. And then he's like, well, I just feel like the locker room overruled him. They were like, nope, we don't want it. No thanks. And Kyle's like, what am I going to do? Alienate the locker room? I'm not going to do it,
Well, they have a type. I mean, they also have a type of guy. They like smart, tough, humble. That's Purdy. That's Trey. They're the same guy.
That's true.
They're smart, tough, humble guys.
True. Christopher says, should have ran Mason instead of Deebo. Yeah, man. I mean, last year they were running Deebo because Mostert was out and Mitchell was in and out, and they pretty much had to. Their season depended on it. This year, they didn't have to. They got running backs. They called up Coleman. I don't know why. And then they did, they got Deebo hurt playing running back anyway. Felt unnecessary. Jerry Rice, agreed. But I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. First of all, it was only 21-0. But I agree with Christopher Hengler here. I would have ran Mason.
Trey needs a rebuild team to grow, I think. That's what Josh Allen had. Chances Niners draft, I don't know him. Do you know him?
Yeah, Bijan Robinson is the Texas running back, and he's a beast. He's awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a tremendous back.
They don't have draft picks, so probably 0.
They got 9 picks, but they don't have a high pick.
Yeah. Replace Deebo with OBJ now. Thank you to Cowboys.
I don't think OBJ is healthy.
T.Y. Not thank you. T.Y. Hilton to the Cowboys. OBJ. Yeah, I don't know, man. A guy who just wants to play in the playoffs, it doesn't seem like he fits in the Niners culture. It doesn't seem like something John Lynch would like. Or Kyle. I don't know. We need you now.
If he's healthy, coming back in the playoffs. Dallas. He's going to Dallas.
You dodged my question, bro. Purdy playing Thursday. We both said we think he is. We didn't mean to dodge your question. We think he's playing Thursday. I don't know how well, what he'll be able to do. Tampa lost a lot of starters. We'll see. Seattle will be harder. It's hard playing in Seattle. The silent count will be very interesting. That'll be a new thing for Brock Purdy. I know he's played in big games, but nothing like.
And Seattle's desperate off a loss.
Yeah. And Pete Carroll's a hell of a defensive coach. So he might have a plan. Let Jimmy walk to New York. Trey Brock is QB1, QB2. Yeah, the Jets have like nothing going at quarterback right now. If you got
Zach
Flacco out
Wilson,
there, it's not good.
Elijah Moore, and a first-round pick for Trey.
I don't think no. Zach Wilson's
Nobody wants
going
Zach
down
Wilson.
the tubes. I know.
You
I
know
want Zach
Shanahan
Wilson.
likes him.
Who's a better quarterback, Zach Wilson or Brock Purdy?
Brock Purdy, in a lot of ways, is the finished product of what a lot of people think that Zach Wilson
Pretty
can
much.
be. And
Pretty much.
Zach Wilson's got the bigger arm and the higher
That's true.
upside.
true.
But Brock's way more consistent.
Yeah, and his teammates like him. He's a leader.
Right, exactly.
Zach is not. Kyle is saving Mason for the playoffs. Okay. He should have been saving Deebo for the playoffs. Okay. Should the Niners be concerned about Talanoa Hufunga's coverage lapses? It seems like when the Niners get burned, it's for long catches, and he's aggressively trying to stop something underneath. I don't know if it's his fault, but he's instinctual, and he is breaking hard on 7-yard throws and giving up 50-yard catches that haven't always counted. Do you think this is a concern?
Yeah, it's a concern. This was the question about the player coming out. This is why he was a day 3 pick, is because he doesn't have great 40 time. He's not a great coverage player. Now he can make up for it coming forward because he's got great film study. He's a smart, tough football player who spends a lot of time. I mean, he spends a lot of time learning the craft and studying the game plan. So he, the one thing Jimmy Ward was like, hey, he's like, when Hufanga sees it, there's no hesitation. He just goes.
Mm-hmm.
So we see that against the run, and he's attacking the mesh point. But as he's played more, he falls off some tackles, and he's got some coverage liability in the deep part of the field. And so, yeah, I mean, I think ultimately he's so accountable, Grant, that when they get to the playoffs, I think he'll tighten his coverage, and I think you'll see the best of Hufanga in all phases of the game in the postseason. But if there's a weakness to his game, it's downfield coverage.
It does feel like the last 2 games, the last 2 weeks, Tom Brady, Mike McDaniel have been trying to go after Hufanga and have had some success. It's just that they've gotten obliterated by the rest of the 49ers. That they haven't really been able to stick with it, and they fell behind and all that stuff. Neither team could block, but it seems like that was their game plan. They're seeing it on film, and a team potentially like Philly or those 3 teams, Buffalo, Kansas City, teams with good offensive lines and great quarterbacks that push the ball down the field, could actually take advantage of this the way Kansas City did. So, I don't know. Interesting. I still think Talanoa is one of the better players on the defense.
No doubt.
But
I'm riding with Huff, but
yeah,
there's coverage concerns.
And it's hard
and
to
he knows
get
it.
here.
If he was sitting right here, right now, I would say,
right,
we're rolling with you. We got confidence in you, but tighten up your coverage down the field because that's where you're weak.
Yeah.
And he would say, you know what? I know it,
agree.
and I'm working at it. So what more can you ask for?
And I think the Niners also, with this pass rush, the way it forces quarterbacks to make quick throws, I think they'd rather have a player like Hufanga who's aggressive to make plays on underneath throws, maybe at the expense of giving up a couple throws deep, because most teams don't have time to throw deep. And you know what I'm saying?
Who played safety for the 85 Bears? Gary Fensick, but he couldn't cover. Did anybody ever find out?
No one had time to test it.
Right.
And you had Tart, who was that kind of play it safe, don't be in the wrong, don't give up a long pass. But I think maybe with this kind of pass rush, you'd rather have Hufanga still with certain matchups. If you can neutralize his pass rush, they're coming after 29.
Look at the ball skills now with Hufanga and Gibson. Gibson's got like 28 career picks. Hufanga's got a great nose for the ball. You're absolutely right. Are they elite coverage guys? No. But guess what? If you can get it done up front and affect the quarterback, those guys are going to pick off a pass.
Oh, yeah. The other thing in the secondary I've noticed is Lenore. He's playing very conservative. I'm sure it's what the coaches want him to do. But basically what he's doing is keeping everything in front of him. And I don't know if he's given up any touchdowns, but it just feels like you got a green light on that side of the field if you have a good quarterback and a good wide receiver. And I don't know. They were trying to go over there. It's just Brady kept missing Julio Jones, who's washed, in my opinion. So, I don't know.
I like Lenore, man. I think
Justin
Lenore's
Jefferson would go to town on Lenore. Sorry.
Yeah,
but he goes
Lenore's a dog, though. I mean,
Yes.
Lenore's tough, and I like Lenore, but and maybe that's the way they're coaching it. Maybe they want to.
I think so.
They want to be incredibly conservative. Maybe they're trying to get I think the game plan clearly was make Brady drive the length of the field, right? Give him the underneath stuff. Yeah, especially in the second half, it really worked.
Kev says, when will you be going on the Krug show? I don't know. Krug hasn't invited me. I don't know.
Hey, man, we'd love to have you. Maybe we'll do. Can we do it next week? Maybe we'll do it next week.
Let's do it next week.
Let's do it.
Can lifting weights help with velocity for Purdy? He's actually looks very strong. I don't think he needs to. I think it's probably more mechanical things.
Did you read that Jerry McDonald piece, Grant?
What that he added? Did he add
in the? I think Jerry McDonald wrote it that in the ramp up to the draft after the Shrine game, he went to Arizona and worked with this coach and they worked through all of his different mechanics on his throw and his hip rotation and his elbow and all this stuff. And he added 5 miles an hour of velo to his fastball.
That's big time.
To me, it's noticeable. Like compared to like Brock Purdy in college, he looks like kind of a soft thrower. In the NFL, he's there's a little bit more zip on his ball.
That's key because that's the difference between 51 miles an hour and 56. 56 is what Jimmy was throwing when he came out of college. That's good. 51 is like Cooper Rush, Christian Ponder. Like that's borderline not good enough. And I to your point, it looks good enough right now. Who will match up better on Metcalf and T. Lockett? Well, Ward has the size to match up with Metcalf, and with Lenore at least just keep Lockett in front of you.
Lockett's a great route runner, one of the best in the game.
Mike says, fellow online Niner fans are annoying, spend so much time fighting about quarterbacks to the point where they aren't even enjoying a 6-game winning streak. Only the online 49er fans, though. Worth signing TB thinking future front office gig. He could be the future ownership stake. He might just bring the Niners back to San Francisco.
Hey, he's Tom Brady. He's the greatest, quarterback. I mean, why not? Why not have him play in a Niner uniform? Then every time the Niners have a party, they can invite Tom and Joe and Steve and all these guys, and it won't be awkward. It'll be like, hey, yeah, he played for the Niners. It's like inviting Randy Moss to a Niner event.
That's true. Christopher Andrew, thank you. Bobo, what are your thoughts on Jimmy in the slot? He seems to be playing better there the last couple weeks. He has been playing better the last couple of weeks.
That's a great question. I thought he was going to get roasted by Godwin this week, and he held his own. And he, Jimmy's got character. Jimmy's a fighter.
I like Jimmy. He kicked Godwin's ass. Just wanted to say that.
He did out physical him a lot of the day.
Yeah. Sign Brady, let Brock learn from him, and trade Trey to create the best O-line in the league. Multiple Super Bowls for us. Man, the whole Trey thing is a little scary because he could end up being really good on a team that gives him a chance, and then you gave up a lot and sold low and never gave him a chance. Scary.
Yeah, I mean, seriously. But if you're let's say Minnesota falls short and Cousins is a disaster again, man, how popular would that move be? If you're Detroit and you just don't believe that Goff's going to ultimately get it done, how popular would that be? I mean, you're talking about a guy who would be an enormous get. But you're right. There's risk involved with moving Trey because the upside is awesome.
The downside is, the upside for him is awesome, and the downside is you look foolish.
Yeah, you could look really, really bad.
Really, really bad. Anyway, we don't have to go down that far. I got to write some articles about this breaking, about the injury stuff, but thanks for watching today. Thanks for being here, Larry. This was a hell of a show. And I got to say, the whole Niner story has gotten so much more intriguing the last 2 weeks. I'm really re-energized for the stretch run. This is fun.
What were you thinking yesterday when the fans were sitting behind like 5 inches of glass? So it's hard to even hear anything. But you could hear through the glass the fans chanting Purdy.
This is the coolest thing I've ever seen.
This is the coolest thing
I've ever seen. Yeah.
Have you ever seen a quarterback win over a fan base faster?
Well, Jimmy did it pretty fast too. It almost feels like a repeat of that, except Jimmy, the team was out of it. But again, they were 1-10, and he goes on a 5-game winning streak. Jimmy did it too, and I think it's funny.
People chanting Jimmy.
I don't know about
first start,
but people were really into Jimmy, and I think it's funny.
They traded for him.
It's going to take someone to have this kind of a start to finally put an end to Jimmy Garoppolo. It seems like you have to have instant success for the Jimmy fans and the skeptics.
Maybe Shanahan has his guy. Maybe finally Shanahan has his guy. They have the weapons. and this guy can get it to him.
Keep him
We'll see.
upright. One last thing before we end the show. Kyle, stop telling your quarterbacks to fight for the extra yard. Come on. Brock Purdy diving. Jimmy Garoppolo running away from pass rushers. Trey Lance between the tack. Dude, just tell them to throw. That's their job. Just throw and stay healthy. Can we have a 15-minute meeting?
Don't make us do a podcast in 3 weeks about Jacob Eason.
Seriously, this is so on the coach. Stop fighting for extra yards. We good? Good? Okay, good. We talked about it. That's it. That's the end of the conversation. Thanks, everyone. I'll see you tomorrow.